think more the thing that we're getting more pushback on is the fact that we denied claims for about 10,000 BTC based on what we consider to be kind of
Yeah,
manipulative practices.
could you expand a bit more on that? Because you did sanction a number of, maybe I don't know how if it was a number of traders, but it's certainly a sizable sum of what we have been as traders calling 1x hedge shorters on Phoenix. So can you tell us a little bit more about the process that you had to reach this decision?
Um, well, it, what we began to see clearly was that there was effectively in the situation that we set up, which is basically trying to find a scenario where all we did was distribute a positive balance, right? We didn't want to distribute negative balances, but we had to figure out how we were going to distribute positive balances, and and the only way to do that unless we accounted for the difference in longs and shorts. So why we came up with this idea of the coefficient, which I agree, not a perfect solution. We certainly even admit that in the announcement. But what we saw happening over time is that people were, I guess, finding the loophole. They were basically trying to get access to BCH with no exposure to BTC, and that goes against the spirit of what the arrangement, what we were trying to do. We also felt that that was a manipulative tactic, and in fact, if anything, that was an abusive tactic that was basically taking money from other users on the platform that had more of a legitimate claim to it, right? If you're long BTC and you've got exposure to the price volatility of BTC, then you should get access to BCH. Instead, people were admittedly clever people figured, oh, I could go long on spot, and I can lend to my own short, and I don't have to pay because lending fees were very high, right?
Yeah.
So one could make the argument like, well, they were paying to be in that position, but actually the vast majority of people weren't. They were actually self-funding their own short,
Right.
and we just felt that was we had to disallow those.
So for
Anybody that
clarity,
Go ahead.
are you still permitting this practice of self-funding and doing what we call 1x hedge shorts? Is this still permitted on the platform in general?
I think that depends on what the purpose is. They're the only time the only time it ever makes sense to self-fund a short, okay, frankly, is there's two scenarios. One is that you like using the margin trading because it gives you cost basis, and that's a good way for you to keep track of your cost base if you're trading around a position. So that's I can understand that argument. But the other solution is the other reason why somebody might self-fund a short in a legitimate context where somebody is in a big winner and they've been peeling off their position, and now they have so much P&L and they have a negative cost basis, so then that becomes self-funded basically by its own P&L. Or somebody's got a winner, or not a winner, they're just in a margin position. They manage to bring in collateral of the correct type. They put it into the margin position. They keep the margin position open because there's a claim. The cost to claim is 20 basis points. So they don't want to close it until they actually want to close the position. I can understand all those legitimate purposes, okay? And those occur, and they occur spuriously. But the other problem here, too, is that on people are wash trading to themselves as well. And that is also concerning. We never want to see that happen. And the difference here is that there was all of a sudden a non-trading related incentive to do this, which was the distribution of BCH, because without BCH, it would never make sense to put on
Right.
to wash trade, right? And especially when it costs you money. So
as a matter of policy, it seems like Finex would still permit it, but on a case-by-case basis would essentially determine whether or not there's any kind of manipulative practices that require sanction.
I'm not going to acknowledge that statement the way you say it per se, but I would just say that, look, under the terms of service, we reserve the right, to sanction people people for practices that we deem manipulative, abusive, or to cause harm to other users.